Hello good people and welcome to the Pro Metal Quick Start Guide. I'm Matthew and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at getting started with the walls. So let's jump right to it. Let's get away from everything we're looking at right here and jump down to our first floor. So the first thing I like to do whenever I start up into a project is do a little bit of exploration. I like to see how many different wall types I have within that project. So if I click out here, I see I have an exterior steel stud first floor wall. I have a 4-inch wall in there, and I have a 3 and 5/8 inch wall. I like to take a look at the openings that I have. So I see in my exterior walls, I've got a couple of different size windows in there. I've got a big guy right there. I've got a smaller one. I've got a storefront door. I've got some double glass doors inside, some single flush doors. I've actually gone ahead and made a door schedule of all of the door sizes separated by size on their floor within this project, and I have the same for a window schedule. And this is going to come into play and be a little handy when I start creating some additional framing conditions for these openings. But let's keep looking at this project. You'll notice here in the two back corners, I've got a neat little kitchen configuration. So we're going to need to put some backing up there on these panels that get generated. I see that this project has been modeled with some really long walls. So we're going to have to look at splitting these panels up within these Revit walls. And we kind of want to leave those walls untouched as much as possible within Revit and really let MWF do the work when it comes to panelizing. So we've taken a look at what's going on in our project here. We're ready to bring in some very needed information into our project. So let's go ahead and actually open up the MWF Pro Metal tab. I see here all of my wall commands because we're just taking a look at walls today. And with the exception of the wall multi-layer commands right here, we have a left to right mentality where we're going to set up this project. We can control everything about the visibility in this project right here. We then go into our modeling and coordinating modes. And at the end of the day, we manufacture from our projects. So let's start setting up this project. First thing I want to do, drop down the settings button here. I see all of my options about loading data, color coding elements. So maybe I want all of the king studs around windows to be yellow and all of the header members above doors to be green. I can do that here in the color assignments. I can use the project material scheme to color code by gauge. So again, a couple of setup options right here. We could spend some time looking at that. But the first thing I want to do is load the data. And we are going to load all of the default light gauge steel information into this project, and this is going to include join markers, framing markers, split markers, and a couple of basic families. So let's just hit the blue check mark and let it do its thing. Perfect. We've got all of that data loaded into our project. Now I need to load in some Revit families to really facilitate the creation of these panels. So just like any other Revit family, we go to the Insert tab, we click Load Family, and we've tucked in our MWF Families library right here. And I'm working in an Imperial project, so I open up my Imperial folder, and I need to load in some SSMA columns. There we go. I mentioned I have a 3 and 5/8 inch wall, so we'll take those two members right there. Same size, different gauges. We have a 4-inch member, so let's scroll down a little bit here. We'll grab a 4-inch, 400S 200, 400S 162, and a new 6-inch member. So we'll take in 600S 200 and a 600S 162 43. Perfect. Some of these guys were already in my project. Let's just override them and head back into our installation folder. We'll look at some track members. We want to make sure that they're horizontal. So again, we grab some 352s right here and right here. We grab a pair of 4-inch members, and some 6-inch members. Perfect. And you know what? I want to bring in some horizontal S members as well. Here we go. This will be for maybe built up box headers. So we'll take in some 362s right here. We'll take in a couple of 4-inch members. I'll bring in an 8-inch, and just for the fun of it, we'll bring in a 10-inch member also. Perfect. Say okay. Again, we override those family members. So we've loaded some data. We've loaded some studs according to the Revit wall types that we have laid out before us. We're ready to start creating our MWF framing templates. So what I like to do is to grab an individual wall. So we'll take this 4-inch wall right here. And you know what? Let's do this. We'll just copy them out over here into the open. I've got a section box kind of cutting them off a bit, so we'll just make them a little bit bigger, just like that. Perfect. Move my door over to the middle. So we've got a 4-inch wall. We can take a 6-inch wall, copy him over here, and let's find a 3 5/8. I believe this guy was right here. Perfect. There we go, just like that. And we'll straighten them out too. Great. So we've got our 3 wall types over here on the side. We're ready to start creating our templates. So let's do our 3 5/8 first. So we open up the Pro Metal tab, and we are going to create a template. I'm going to do this pretty quick here. I'm going to hit the template button. We're going to create a template in this wall, and then we're going to reverse engineer it to be exactly the 3 5/8 template that we want. So we're going to save this template into this project, and therefore in the next project we do, we can just export that template from this project, import it into the next. We can email these templates to other users. This is going to allow our library of templates to just keep growing. So let's first build a folder to save this template. So we'll click here. We're going to save this into the project. We'll call these the quick start templates. Close it down. But I first need to take the default light gauge template. I'll set it as active, and I say create. Now I kind of jumped through that last dialog box there pretty quick on purpose, and I'll go back into that after and I'll show you why. So let's take a look at panel 1 that just got created. I can see that it's placing it right inside my wall for me. It looks kind of big, to be honest. I know that's a 3 5/8 wall. And if I select this stud, I see it's a 600S 137/33. This is because our default template comes in with 6-inch members. So like I said before, we need to take panel 1 and reverse engineer it. So to do this, we select any member of the panel, any stud, top plate, the wall itself, or the label. It's my personal favorite. And I want to open this panel's properties. In my panel's properties, I see everything going on inside it, such as the prefix right here. I want to call this one interior, like this. My stud justification, I want to sit that right on the structural center line. What if I have 2 layers of drywall on one side and 1 on the other side? My panel won't sit right in the wall center line. It needs to sit on the structural center line. Then I have all of my stud types here, my vertical studs, my top and bottom tracks. We're going to change these all to 3 5/8. So my vertical, my on-center members, there we go. My bottom track, it's a 362 150, and my top track is a 362 T200. Perfect. Right here in suffix, this will be our wall type A. So we can just put a -A right here. In the structural tab, I have the ability to offset the tops of these panels. So if my wall is at 8 feet high and I give it a 1 foot offset off the top, it'll create 9 foot high panels. Maybe the drywall stops at the acoustic ceiling tiles, but the panel connects to the deck above. I can put in an offset right here, and every panel created with this template will have that offset. So I'm going to jump to the miscellaneous tab. And in here, you'll notice I have the ability to override things such as stud spacing, top gap deflections, maybe the end studs of every panel from this template have a different gauge. I want to hit opening framing. I want to say edit, and I want to jump right to the openings tab. This is more of a blanket way of framing everything or every window type when it sees a window in a 3 5/8 inch wall. Here I can blanket frame all of the doors and all of the rectangular openings. I'm going to go ahead and say use for all opening because we're going to use some framing markers in a bit. That'll make a lot more sense in a little while. First thing I want to do is remove the additional cripples that get created above the door right here and right here. They're just unneeded for me. My headers, you'll notice here, they're still set to 6-inch members, so we need to change those to a 3 5/8 inch member. Same thing for the sill. You'll also notice that my jack type and my king type are blank. And that's because it's going to use the information it finds in the general info tab up here. If we swing down here, I see I have jack studs selected, and we can unselect that. We don't really need jack studs in these guys. If I did want to blanket frame all of my doors, windows, and openings with, let's say, 2 kings, you just select king and say add. If I only want 1 king, or if it doesn't really matter to me at this point because we're going to use framing markers, I can just right click and delete it. Perfect. So let's close that down. Everything in my miscellaneous tab is okay for right now. All of my members are set to 3 5/8. My prefix and my suffix are set. I like everything about the way this panel is about to look, so I apply these changes to this panel. I say template, and over here in my quick start templates in my project, I want to save as interior 3 5/8 inch template. Just like that, my first template is built. So I can close it down, I can say OK, and I can see how everything just changed. Now my studs sit right inside my wall. My label says interior 1-A, and I want to hide this wall for a second because I want to just quickly mention that you'll notice that my panel label is placed right here on the interior face of my wall. If we look at it in plan view and make a little more sense, if I select this wall, see these arrows? My Revit arrows are always placed on the exterior side of my Revit wall. So by default, our panel label is placed on the interior side, and our framing starts from left to right. So if I select this first end stud, I see that it's E1, and his buddy over here on the other end is E2. My first on center member, S1, member S2, this guy over here, S3, and then studs or tracks or headers around doors are given specific codes, SDL1 for the stud on the left side and SDR1 for the stud on the right side. Let's quickly do something like this. Let's move this wall. We'll stretch it out a little bit. Maybe we'll move my door as well. So a change has taken place in my project. Anytime something happens, I can select any member of my panel, maybe just this stud, maybe the panel label itself, and I say regenerate. MWF is going to recognize this change and update my wall for me. Perfect. Let's take a look at the 4-inch wall. So let's go back here. We'll say create. Let's grab the template we just built together. Let's set it as active and say create again. It's going to create a 3 5/8 inch member right there inside a 4-inch wall. So again, we need to make some big changes. We go open up Interior 2's panel properties, and let's make some changes. I want to use my suffix to be B, and this way I'll be able to easily identify a 3 5/8 inch wall versus a 4-inch wall. And we change all of our members right here to 4 inches. 400S, oops, 162. This is a 400T 150 and a 400T 200. We'll jump to the miscellaneous tab. We'll say opening framing one more time. Use for all openings. Not a 362 anymore, a 400, and same thing down here, a 400T 150 as well. Perfect. Close it down. We apply these changes to this individual panel. We say template, and save as. So let's call this interior 4-inch template. There we go, 2 templates created that quick. Say okay, panel regenerates, interior B, take a look at this stud, 400S162. Great. I'm going to quickly create the 6-inch template up here in this exterior wall. So again, create, quickly gonna throw in my interior panels. Again, open up this panel's properties and start making those changes. So we're gonna change this one to 600S162, 600S125, 600T150 for my bottom track, and a 600T200 for my top track. It's not an interior wall, it's an exterior wall. And let's put suffix. We don't need a suffix here. Perfect. Miscellaneous tab, again, opening framing. Openings tab, used for all openings. My window header type, we're going to use 600T150s, and again, 600Ts 150. Great, let's make another change into this panel just to kind of give us a little bit of a taste of what's going on in here. End studs. We can take a look in here. We can override the general end studs. So maybe we actually want them to be 600S200s instead. So they have my end studs of my exterior walls have a bigger flange. Oh, whoops. Gotta actually make that change. There he goes. Great. Everything looks good. I apply these changes to this individual panel. I say template, and I say save as. And this is exterior 6-inch template. So these naming conventions are going to be up to you. You can name these templates whatever you like to correspond to the wall type, to be something very generic like I've used. Again, choice is yours. So we close this down. We say okay. We see those 6-inch members take place right there. If I look at my 6-inch S200s versus my on-center studs are 600S 125s. Perfect. All right, let's take a look at our 3 5/8 inch wall type down here. I can see that I have my 16 on centers. Maybe I don't need 16 on center my stud spacing for these non-bearing interior walls. So I want to open up this panel's properties. I want to say miscellaneous. Right here, studs. And I can see the first option, panel properties for my stud spacing is set to 16. I want to change that to 2 feet. Close that down. And if I hit the structural tab, I see I have a first stud offset. It's also set to 16 on center or 1'4". Let's change that to 2 feet as well. So now that I've updated this individual panel's template or properties, I want to apply it to this instance. And then I want to go and find my 3 5/8 inch template and I want to update it. So this is how we update templates within our project. And now every panel I create with that template is going to have that, look at that 2 foot on center spacing. If we kind of slide this guy over here, again, make a change, don't forget to regenerate. There we go. And now I can see my 2 foot on center spacing versus my 16 on center of my other wall types. Perfect. So we've got our 3 templates created. Now we need to create some framing markers. Now these framing markers are going to be applied to openings and they're going to override how we frame things like doors and windows from the templates that are being used. So let's jump into a 3D view and actually take a look at some of these guys right here. I can see that if we hide this wall, all of these doors, even though they're all of 3 different spans, are all being framed exactly the same way. If I were to frame this exterior wall with my exterior wall template, let's do that real quick. Let's just isolate it. Let's create it and let's grab my exterior wall template. We'll set it as active and say create. I can see that all of these windows are framed exactly the same way. There, that flat header. And if I look real closely, I don't even have to look that close, I can see my header is actually sticking into my window. Now it's doing this because the way this window was built within Revit, the parameters weren't set up with MWF in mind. So the width and height parameters that are being read are not being read correctly. Neither of the softwares are broken. Nothing is wrong. They just weren't anticipating that type of window being used, or that type of window wasn't expecting a framing software like MWF to be involved. But we are going to fix this within these framing markers. So let's bring everything back and let's talk about, or let's build some markers. So keep using that term marker. Let's open the marker manager. We're talking about wall openings. These are single openings, so we can drop them down. Notice all of these markers that are already loaded into my project for me. We work with manufacturers like Clark Dietrich. So we have a lot of their framing conditions, their families, the red header, the HDS members. We have the Pro X header from Semco in here. That's just two. We work with other manufacturers, and as you get more familiar with the software, you'll recognize them. But we also have our multi-system header configurator. This one's going to be nice and easy to use. So let's take what we've already seen here before us and let's duplicate it. And we're going to call this one, we're going to use this for our big 9 foot by 6 foot window. And if I need to check any of those spans, I can open up one of my, either my door or wall schedule. So we'll call this one big window, just like that. And we'll open it up. So here we are in the multi-system big window marker. And you'll notice here I'm in the header top of opening tab, because I also have the header top of panel tab. So this will kind of dictate where this header is being placed within this panel. I'm going to keep it above my window. And I see I have different header systems here. So I have a header track option. If I double click it, I see I only have actually one configuration. But if I hit box header and I double click, I see I have multiple configurations. I have built up options. I have all of these conditions to choose from. Interlocking and a lintel plate header option. Let's stick with box header. We'll double click this one and we'll use option 2. Just like that, my preview changes and I see I have the ability to override either information from my template or select new families such as my inner horizontal header studs. So let's override our cripple track. That's the member that's sticking upwards with a 600T200. The inner members right here, I want to use 800S 125s. It'll give me a nice 8-inch header height. I don't want to override my horizontal tracks. That's what's actually boxing in my 8-inch members. I'll add some clips, sure, and I don't want to make this a subassembly. My sill, I'm just going to leave it a single sill track. It's going to use the information it finds right here, so we'll use a 600T200. And we'll see some angles on the top. We don't need to see them on the bottom. Jams. Do I want to use a built-up C member? We've got a bunch of different options here. I can cap them. I can use a double jam stud. So let's actually cap them. So my first jam stud is going to be a 600S, we'll say 125. My jam stud 2, that's going to be inside my cap. We'll use the same thing, 600S 125. And then my jam track, so that's what's going to be encompassing everything. Do I have a 600T vertical member? I do not, so I just didn't load one in, but we'll go and find one in a bit. We'll use a 600S 162. We'll change it after. I'll show you how we can update these markers. We have to go over here to rough opening. And like I said before, I saw that that header member was framing inside that window. And I know just from using these markers and this window that I can give it, well, we'll give it a 4¼ inch header offset. We'll give another additional inch to the left and right just for easy installation, rough opening, whatever the case is. We can put that offset right here. So big window, looks good. I say, okay. Now I need to build another marker for my little windows. So we duplicate big window. We'll call this one, we'll keep it all caps. It'll be easy to find in our list in a minute. Small window. and let's open him up. So small window is open. Again, he's using option 2 from big window, but actually let's just use a built up member like this. Double click here. We'll use a single cap with the cripple track, and our header stud is going to be a 600S 125/33. We don't need any more clips in here. Let's override the cripple track and put him to a 600T 200, just like that. The rough opening, I need to keep that 4 1/4 on top. We'll stick with the 1 inch on each side and say okay. Let's build one more marker for my storefront door. Let's just duplicate, we'll use big window again. We'll duplicate him. We'll call this guy storefront door. Open it up. And we can choose a new type of header configuration. So let's keep it with option 2. Everything looks pretty good right here. Let's just change something about that rough opening. We don't need, we'll just give him 1 inch on top as well. And maybe our jams will be a little bit different. Built up C jams there. We'll see what kind of options we have in here. We'll just 2 C stud jams capped. So again, we need a 600S 125, jam 2, 600S. We'll give him another one here. And that track, again, I don't have a T member, but we'll go and update that in a second. We'll say okay. So now we've built storefront door, we've built small window, and we've built big window. Now, how can I accurately and quickly take these markers and attach them to these windows? Well, we would actually build what we call a rule set. So that's right here. And in here, I would create a rule that says if I have a window between 0 and 5 feet, so my small window, use small window marker. And if it's between 5 feet and 9 feet or 10 feet, use big window. And if I have a door between 0 and 8 feet, use storefront door. So we can do that through this wall opening mapping. We covered this in the full in-depth training. Today we're going to just quickly manually stamp these markers onto these windows. Both options are good. We'll see it going. So let's close that down. And this is how I like to do it. I grab this window, I right click, I say select all instances visible in this view. I can see in my filter I've got 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4 over there. Perfect. I go Pro Metal. I want to now in my markers drop down apply an opening type. So I've got 4 openings selected and I say big window. Perfect. Let's do the same for our small window right here. Select all instances visible in view. Markers, apply opening type. Where's that small window? Right here. He's applied. And let's grab the storefront door. I believe I only have 1 in this entire project. We'll say markers, apply opening type, storefront door. Okay. Now let's take this exterior panel or exterior wall with the panel in it that we've already created. Let's isolate him again. So it's HI. My wall is isolated. And if I hit regenerate, I get to see my panel comes back into my wall. And if I hide it real quick, I can take a look at my small window. Let me hide my top plate too. There's my 600S. Oh, I can see that my member is being capped inside. Perfect. But I've accidentally used a 400S 200. So we need to update this marker. What about this guy over here? He's using a 400S 200 too. So I've made a mistake in my marker. That's okay. We'll take a look at how we're going to handle that. Let me undo that hide. Take a look over here. I noticed that I don't have any cripple members above my panel header. So we need to make another update into our template. So let's do one of 2 things first. Let's go in and load a new family. So I want to go here, Imperial. I want to take a T column, say track column, and I know I need a 600 T, we'll say 125.68. And it gets loaded in. Perfect. So let me reset my hidden members, and let me first update those members above. You'll see up here where I don't have those cripples, as I mentioned. Anytime I need to update my template, I come back over here to this smart wall. I say Pro Metal, I say Properties, I go to my Structural tab, and I say my minimum cripple length is set to 1 foot. I want to set it to 1 inch. I apply that change. I say Template, Exterior 6-inch template. I say Update. Are you sure you want to override it? Yes. Let's just say Close and OK. And then I'm going to do it this way. Say Template from the properties of my long panel here. I set it as active. I close it down. I say OK. And with that new 1-inch minimum cripple length, those members above my window, if I take a look right here, are now being generated. There they are, little guys in there. Perfect. And I take this time to just mention too, you'll notice how my header now is sitting right on top of my window, right where it needs to be. Perfect. So we need to fix up that 4-inch member. So this is what we call updating our markers and updating our templates. Let's go ahead and hide this top plate right here. Let's select the window. We have 2 ways of doing this. We can either go back into the marker manager and find big window and change that family right here, or I can do it like this. I can say the opening type that I applied on here, big window. I hit the edit button over here on the right. My marker opens. I go over here to my jams, and look at that. There's my 400S 200. We need to change that to a 600S 200. And our jam track, like I said before, it's using a 600S. We want to change that to that 600T so it actually caps it. Let's say OK. Say OK right here. And again, we just need to, well, actually, before we regenerate this panel, let's change this member here. So again, marker, we want to apply the opening type, small window, make that change. The marker is opened. We go to our jam tab. Again, it's set to 400S. We need to change that to a 600S 162. I'm sure that works. We'll override the jack as well to a 600T. Perfect. So that change has been made in both markers. Again, we grab any member of that panel, we hit regenerate, and we see all of our markers get updated. Just like that. So we can hide this guy again. We can see our members, our 600T capping. There's our 600S 162. Perfect. Looking good. Now, I've gone ahead and I've created this really long panel within this wall. I'm not actually going to do that. I'm going to panelize off-site perhaps, so I'm going to ship with a maximum allowable length. I wanted to get rid of this panel. So whenever I need to delete a panel, I select any member of that panel itself. I hit the delete button. Got a couple of different options here. I want to delete members. There he goes. My panel is gone. If I reset my view, my wall comes back. Perfect. So we've created our framing templates. We've created our framing markers. We need to quickly frame all of these walls, so we want to continue our setup. I want to look at my template manager first. I see the 3 MWF templates I have, and I know I have 3 Revit wall types. So here in template map, if I open it up, again, I see the word default. So I want to build my own template map. So we'll call this, let's turn off that catalogs, quick start template map. Perfect. Click that, we see it changes to project up here. So now we're gonna read the templates from our project, and we want to add a template map. I see wall type, so that's referring to the Revit wall type, and I see template. That's a MWF template. So let's actually make these guys a little bit bigger so it's easier to read for me. I say, oh, I know I'm looking for exterior brick on steel stud for the first floor. Those are my exterior walls. And I map it to my 6-inch exterior template. If I add in another wall type, I want to find my MWF 4-inch wall. I want to add my MWF 3 5/8-inch wall, and 4-inch and 3 5/8. It says 3 inch 3 1/4 here. It's because my Revit units are set up to, I think, to round to the nearest 1/4 inch. We'll go update that in a second. Perfect. I've mapped something Revit to something MWF. Perfect. Now when I come into my project, I grab this window, this interior wall type, this interior wall type, all of these interior wall types, and we'll say these 2 exterior walls. I can just go ahead and quickly say, quick create. It sees I have 8 walls selected. It's putting all of those panels into those walls automatically. I don't have to go through there and distinguish which template goes to what. I get a warning here. I get some clashing members. Let's close that down and let's take a look at what's going on there. Oh, my windows look like they're framing well. But if I take a look at my corner here, if I hide these walls, we speak to a lot of people, but we've never seen anybody frame just like this with all of this overlapping going on. Let's take a look at these walls. Oh, that's not good. Getting a lot of clashing. Now that's because if I jump to a plan view, that's because I don't have what's called a join marker placed on each of these corners. So let me select these 2 walls. It doesn't matter that I have panels in there, panel labels. I want to say joins. I want to say place join. And I have this library of previously defined corner configurations that automatically gets loaded into my project when we did that load data before. Here, this guy looks good. I can say okay. So kind of like that quick create that we saw before, where it automatically creates all of these panels, I can quickly select all of these walls and place all of these joins at once. That's done with the auto join command, but we usually cover that in one of the longer, more extensive trainings. Oops. There's my wall types there. Let's go with, what are we doing? These are the same size walls. There we go. So we'll put a intersection wall, corner join right there. So again, we can use the auto join to do essentially a big blanket selection and put in all of those joins. Again, we cover that in those big long trainings. One thing I am going to show you guys right now is something like this big wall right here. It's 59 feet. I don't want to create a 59-foot panel. I want to create multiple panels within this wall. So again, we need to go to our markers and we need to build a split marker. So we have 2 options here to split. So we'll go to the marker manager. I have my split options. I want to build a horizontal split and I want to duplicate this guy. And we're going to call it 1/4 inch split. We can open them up. And on the left side, we want to have let me do this real quick. Type UN for units and we'll drop it from 1/4 to 1/8. We'll go back to our marker manager, splits, horizontals, 1/4 inch split. There, he's already set to 1/8. Remembered, 1/8, 1/8, left gap, right gap. That way I have a 1/4 inch gap in between these panels that are about to be generated. Makes me happy. Just like that, we've got a split marker. So let's grab this wall. Again, we're applying a marker and I want to split by rule. I get my panel split dialog box here. I can control the minimum length of panels to be created, the maximum length. So in this case, it says 10 feet. I'm okay with that. Maybe I can drop it to 9 feet, 8 feet. I can put it up to 12 feet if I want. I want to use that 1/4 inch split marker I just built. And my start point is left when looking from the inside. So let's confirm this. And just like that, all of these little splits get placed right here, right there. There's a guy right here. If I don't like where these splits have been placed, there's nothing stopping you from just kind of dragging it around, making little modifications. I can dimension them, I can constrain them. And now that that wall has its splits hosted within it, I say quick create, and this single Revit wall now gets generated with X number of panels. So there's exterior 14, 15, 16, and so on. Just like that. Let's take a jump into a 3D view and take a look at this kitchen that's going on right here. So here we are in 3D. I see my kitchen. I know I'm going to need some additional backing behind this casework right here, right along the face of this panel. So the first thing I want to do is load in, because I didn't do this at the beginning of my project. Not a big deal. We can do it anytime on the fly. I want to load in some flat strap bracing. So here, I want to drop down to flat strap, open it up. From the type catalog, I can select any size member I need. So I can say, you know what, I want a 6 inch by 1/4 inch, pretty heavy duty. Let's load it in. In it goes. I'm ready to get going here. So let's actually hide some of these walls, make it a little easier to see. Perfect. I need to put some strapping from S-join, which is right here, all the way over here to S8. I don't know what height I want it at, so let's actually go into a section view or an elevation view of our panel 14 right here. So let me just throw this guy in, open it up. Down below here, let's just take a closer look. Let's hide this. We'll just grab our wall here too at the same time. Hide everything. Hide my wall. I can kind of see my panel here. Let me actually bring it into a little bit shaded. I can see my ceiling. I can see that these are stud members, but they don't look like good looking studs to me. And that's because my detail level is set to coarse. If I increase it to anything such as medium or fine, I can finally see all of my studs. Now let's put in some reference planes, and maybe I want to put some backing right here and right along. We'll go back like this, right there and right there. Let's dimension off the bottom of my panel. Right here, that's at 5'2 1/4" and 6'6". All right, I want some horizontal backing. I said I want it to go from S-join 2, which I believe is, or S-join 3. Let's just actually get rid of this wall right. Hide him real quick. That's E1, S-join 3. Oh yeah, S-join 2 to S8 at this height right here, 5'2 1/2" and 6 inches. So let's open up the, leave it there, properties of this panel. We will navigate ourselves to the miscellaneous tab. I said we want to put some horizontal backing. So we say edit. Here I can put diagonal bracing for shear walls, whatever the case is. I want to go strictly horizontal. I want to go from S-join 2 all the way along to S8. I want to attach this strapping to the structural face interior, because I know that it's the interior side of my wall. I want to measure right to the center of that member. What member am I measuring to? My flat strap bracing that I loaded. And I want to rotate that strapping, we'll just say 90 degrees. I want 2 pieces of horizontal bracing. I want the first one at 5'2 1/4" and the second one at 6'6". Perfect. I can automatically or evenly space that. I can say put the first piece at 2 feet, and then every 4 feet after that I can put a piece of bracing. I can punch holes at the same time with this horizontal command. All of that extensively is covered in the full training. So let's add that to this panel. Let's close it down. Let's say, okay, just like that. Along the face of that panel, I see my flat strap bracing get generated right there and right there. Perfect. If I jump back into my 3D view, I can see right along the face of that panel, if we hide these two guys, perfect. Some continuous flat strap bracing, just the way I needed it. Again, this was the manual way of going into this panel's property. Just like that quick create I mentioned, just like that auto join I mentioned, we have the equipment backing manager, which runs through the project and would find every instance of that casework and automatically put this flat strap bracing on the face of that panel. I wouldn't have to go through there and do it every single time. Again, something we cover in the full-blown trainings. All right, next thing we want to take a look at real quick is this bathroom group we have right here. So you'll notice I've got a couple of walls, the door, the water closet, and the sink in there. Great. I know if I go select all instances, visible in view, I've got 4 of them, so I've got 2 over here as well. Great. Let's just take a look at the first one. With this group selected, we have the ability to use the quick create command that we had set up before and create those panels, just like that. Great. Now, how is this going to differ, or what kind of benefit is this going to have for us? Well, I can now go to my modular commands and I can copy members on all identical groups. So it's going to look through the project. It's already found the other 3 groups and it's putting those panels in there just like that for me. Perfect. Now, obviously this is how model groups work within Revit, but what if something like, let me swing back over to this side, maybe the framing in interior 122 is different from the framing in interior 124. Well, I can open up the properties of this panel. I can make a change such as that minimum cripple length not being of right length right there. I can say it's 1 inch, and you'll notice that only the framing in interior 122 is changed. Maybe for whatever reason, here 123, we need some backing. So we can say, you know what, I want to go from E1 to S3 at 3.5 feet. I want to go right along the structural center line. I want to put a piece of 4-inch member. I can add that right here. And you'll see that that continuous backing now only becomes part of this group. You'll notice that 125 doesn't have that backing. So the model groups remain Revit groups, but the panels inside them remain independent. That'll allow me to go into this group and make any other modification that may be different. But what if I like the change that I've made to these panels, or what if I need this change to apply to the other groups? Well, with these guys selected, I can just drop down the modular commands again, and I can say match properties on all identical groups. And just like that, that additional bracing, as you can see right here, is added, as is the additional cripple members above my door. And if I take a look on the other side of my project, if we take a second to get over there, I can see all of that has been modeled over here as well. So it's a very nice way to keep track of these panels within my project. Great. We've got some panels created. We've got our templates done. We've built framing markers. We've talked about placing joins. We talked about placing splits. We've talked about putting some of that backing in there. The last thing I want to cover today is generating shop drawings. So once I have all of the panels I need generated, I can simply just grab any panel, any member of my panel, swing over here to shop drawings. I don't need to see this message anymore. You'll notice I have a couple of 11 by 17s right here. You may only have the default landscape one. So if I grab my 11 by 17 and I say generate, on my sheet it's going to create my elevation, my bill of material, my top view, and it's going to do this based off of information that I've set into essentially their drawing templates. Now these take a little while to set up, but you'll notice you'll get some kind of error like this. It cannot set the dimension type ordinate 332 because it doesn't exist in this project. And that's because a dimension style I've asked the drawing engine to use doesn't exist, like it says, in this project. So I would either need to import ordinate 332 Arial into this project or create it, but it doesn't stop my panel from generating the drawing. So I can just kind of move this over here a little bit. These guys come in sometimes a little bit larger than I expect. You know what? We don't even need a 3D preview. And we can move this guy over here and just kind of bring in my dimension. Don't be shy to activate these views. So again, if I right click or double click into that viewport, I can activate them. I can grab these studs, I can copy them, move them over a little bit. Perfect. Come back into here, options, refresh the view. It sees that I've copied it and it automatically labels my members for me. If they were any closer, they would have been grouped together, but I can just kind of slide those over like this as well. So in the description below, you will be able to download my MWF title block. You'll be able to download my settings, and you'll be able to download this project. You'll be able to generate shop drawings that look just like this out of this project as well. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. Again, my email will be down below as well. I look forward to hearing from you guys. Again, this has been the quick start guide. So this is just enough information to get you up and running. As you can see from the size of the software, there is all kinds of tools, commands, operations. Just because you didn't see it today in this video doesn't mean we don't do it. So please don't be shy or hesitate to contact us. Have a great day, good people.